you were flipping it and making a call.
Okay.
When you're ready.
Okay.
As soon as I get back into my office.
Okay, I got it. Where is Jeff?
Well, I don't want to keep the fans waiting. Hey, this looks familiar.
Where'd Jeff go? What's that?
The one-word answers, I thought, man, I don't think I've done anything to really irritate her the last
No, I
month
just,
or so.
no, it wasn't, I was just trying to be concise.
You were. I don't think it could have been any better.
Okay, real quick, couple of things. So, you get a minute opening, just opening statements. You'll get a minute and a half to answer your questions. We have some questions. And then 2-minute closing, so we can wrap up and talk about what you want to. When we hit the 30-second mark, we have 30 seconds left, I'll hold this up. So I'll be over here kind of wait. At the end, I'll hold this up. You don't have to stop down, just finish up. Start it here in just a minute. Yellow's 30 seconds. And don't worry, because sometimes when I hold up the card, people totally lose their train of thought, so.
Think of the yellow as yield.
Yeah, exactly. Start slow. All right, here's cards.
Okay.
If people want, we've got plenty, but if people want to submit, just come up and drop them off.
Are these loaded up heavy on
Let them know. Steal a pen.
Sacramento most of the day. Every time I go to Sacramento, it's like going to another country.
The traffic is 1,000,000% worse than it.
That's better.
He must have sat in this last dirt, 'cause
And that government too.
long legs, you could sit down lower and still be up high. My little short body, I gotta be higher.
Yep, they're on.
Wow, okay.
Oh.
Anybody's so inclined.
You're the only one who can smell my breath. Sucker baby.
we ready to go? Okay. All right, everyone, well, welcome to tonight's Clearlake City Council Candidates Forum. My name is Elizabeth Larson, and I'm the editor and publisher of Lake County News, and I'm tonight's moderator. We're pleased tonight to have the three candidates for council this fall, and from alphabetically, Russ Kramer, Russ Purdock, and Dirk Slutin. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know it's a busy season. Everybody's running around to events, so we're pleased that we could get them all here tonight. We've got a series of questions that have been submitted and prepared. Please feel free, those of you in the audience, to bring up additional ones as the event goes on. What we've done is we've had a number draw. They will go in alphabetical order for their openings, but then we've got a slightly different draw rotation to start the actual questions. They will get a minute opening statement. Then they will then get a minute and a half to answer the actual questions. And then at the end of tonight's event, they'll get a 2-minute wrap-up. They can talk about anything they'd like to. Maybe they want to revisit something. Maybe they want to bring something up that hadn't been discussed before. So it's a kind of a protocol we've used before. It's meant to be very introductory, allow them to discuss things that are important to them and important to you. So we also want to thank tonight PEG TV for streaming the event, and the Lake County Economic Development Corp for being one of our co-sponsors, and also a big thank you to City Hall staff, which did the name tags and put out the water and got us all set up. So thank you to all of them for that work. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to start with the opening statements, and we'll go in alphabetical order, and there will be 1 minute, and I will be flagging them when they have to start winding down. So we will start, again, in alphabetical order with Russell Kramer.
Good evening. Obviously, I'm Russell Kramer. The short answer, do I want to be on council or continue to be on council? I am your incumbent. So I want to help Clearlake grow positively. I believe I have the necessary leadership skills to do that best on city council. I was born and raised in Lower Lake, actually, came back 15 years ago, and for the past 15 years I've been training for this job. I've honed my skills going through a number of community services, which I'll discuss a little later, and culminating in my appointment to the council in March. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and Elizabeth, thank you for hosting this. I grew up here. Grew up in Clear Lake Oaks, moved to Clear Lake in 1977 and lived here ever since, with the exception of about 4 years to get my degree at Sac State. It's very important for me to see this community move forward because my family, my children, have decided they want to come back. So as my logo says, we need to work together to improve this city and make it a safer and cleaner and better place to live because my kids want to live here. They want to raise their children here, and I want to be a part of that, obviously. So I'm invested. I also have properties that I bought over the years as investments, and over the past 20 years, I've watched the values of those go down. And when I ran 4 years ago for this seat, it was to make our city safer. We had an out-of-control marijuana grow program or problem.
Time.
Wow, that was a quick minute.
It's
Thank
fast.
you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You'll get the hang of it. Dirk Slutin.
Thank you for inviting me today, Elizabeth, and thank you, Lake Co News. I'm running for city council because I can bring the experience of being in business for over 20 years. I've been listening for the last 10 months and over the last 3 years, being on the planning commission of what the problems of the city are and how they development through the planning commission I've seen before us. There are several things I can bring to the table that will help the city move forward. Again, as a business owner and an investor in the city of Clear Lake, I've been involved particularly in retail development as an owner, developer, designer, construction, financing of all kinds of different commercial real estate. One example is that the EAR for Walmart, that the expansion for Walmart, shows tremendous retail gaps in certain areas, and those are the areas that I want to explore to see how we can grow the economy of the city of Clear Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get into the questions. We did the number draw, and Dirk won, so he will go first.
So I'm done?
You're going for, yeah, exactly. You can leave. We're just,
I won.
all right. So first question, and again, you each get a minute and a half to answer. As a council member, what would be your 3 key priorities for the city of Clearlake?
My 3 primary goals for the city is enhance the economic development plan by attracting sustainable, value-added business to our area. There are examples in the wine industry and in the lake industry, or we call it bass fishing, etc. Also, the second one is collaborate with all stakeholders, a local hospital, city, council, state, churches to launch innovative programs that addresses homelessness. And the third item is fast-tracked Measure V street improvement project. Those are the 3 main issues that I hear from the people that I've talked to over the last 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Kramer. You're next.
Really?
Yeah. You went really fast this time, so.
I thought it was.
No,
one
I'm sorry, we're
Got it.
rotating around this
Okay.
way.
All righty. Well, my vision for Clear Lake is also threefold, so that fits right into the question. Economic development has to be the first. It's one that's going to provide the revenue to maintain and improve our city. The airport development, I believe, must go forward to generate increased sales revenue. We've actually have made a pretty good start on that across the street with Tractor Supply and Big Five. New businesses attract new businesses, and I fully think we really need to push forward, do what we can to attract and develop the airport. Along with that, the Lakeshore Drive corridor was once a prime resort and hospitality area. The lake is our greatest resource, and it's being underutilized now. We need to do what we can to bring back our hospitality and resort tourism industry. Our ag tourism industry is also important, but here in Clear Lake is that resource. Second thing is housing. The revenue generated by housing, revenue generated by economic development needs to be followed by housing. We are short of it. We need more of it. The third thing, of course, are the jobs that are generated by the economic development, by the increased stores and retail outlets we have here. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
Thank you. Absolutely the most important thing we need to do is get a handle on our crime problem. That was one of the reasons why I left the council initially. But when you look at Clear Lake and you drive around Clear Lake, when you investigate or Google the city of Clear Lake, you see that we have a rating of F. People do not want to come here to invest in homes or invest in their businesses while we have an F rating. I'm very excited and have ridden with and spoken at length with Chief White. Many of the ideas I had, he's also identified as low-hanging fruit, and I appreciate that. But I think before we can ask people to come and invest in our community, we need to show that we are safe and ready to accept them. The other thing that we need to do is completely renew, as much as we can, our housing stock. We have old, dilapidated vacation homes that need to be maintained or torn down. We have I had some ideas when I was on council for over 3 years and meeting with city staff to figure out ways to build or bring back our building industry and to rehabilitate these homes to entice families that want to come and move into our city. Lake County has a housing shortage. We can capitalize on that. And the last thing is to continue to make this a well-managed city, and by doing that, we will bring in that economic growth that will have jobs and grow our city and make it what we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question. We start with Russ on the end. What role does the council have in recruiting and retaining talented staff? Do you think the current council is doing a good job of that, and what can you add to that process?
Well, the role of council, of course, is to be the visionaries, to support our staff, through our city manager, find out where we do need more things. Of course, wages are something that we've actually been looking at and trying to adjust to make it more viable to bring to retain both retain staff and to bring more staff to our city. We've increased our Public Works Department by, I think, 9 or 10 people just recently with regard to the Measure V finances, and we had to, in order to entice those people there, we have to be able to pay them a living wage. Could you repeat the last part of that question?
Sure. Do you think the current council is doing a good job of being involved with recruitment and retention, and what can you add to that?
Well, I think we are doing of course, I'm on the council, so I do think we're doing a good job. I think we always need to be open to new ideas and listen to feedback from our staff. I know I try to talk to Chief White fairly regularly. I talk to our general city manager Folsom and assistant manager Flora all the time, asking what can we do to help with our staff to make it run more smoothly and okay, I'll quit.
Okay. Russ Purdock.
Well, one of the first things we had to do when I was first elected was to hire a city manager. Our outgoing manager was ready to leave and retire. I want to congratulate the council that preceded me because I thought they did a fine job getting things set up. So when Mr. Folsom took the helm, he was ready to go. When I served as mayor for 2 years, it was very important for me to kind of be a buffer between the council and as much as I could, because obviously we all hold the same authority. But what I found was there was a lot of micromanaging going on. Council members were going to department heads or even line staff and expressing concerns. And that causes a lot of confusion and misunderstanding with the city staff. So first off, we need to understand that there's a chain of command, and it's through our city manager. We have a current problem right now because our department, our Public Works Department director is looking to retire. And, that may be within the year, but I've already started looking for whom else we could try to recruit for that position, which even though I'm not on council now, I feel just as a member of this community, it's important to do that. And I would continue to do that. But first and foremost, when reelected, I would need to work with Mr. Folsom to do that. And I'm happy to make phone calls and even travel to recruit staff. We need to get our pay up. When I left the council to take the job as chief of police, I was surprised that anyone would actually even apply, because our chief is making what entry-level patrolmen are making outside Lake County. So we need to improve that.
Thank you. Dirk.
I think this city council has done a tremendous job in attracting great key personnel like Mr. Folsom, like Mr. Flora, and like Mr. White. Again, the Public Works Director is retiring, and as being involved as an owner of a engineering and surveying business, I've hired engineers. I've hired all kinds of different people to do that. I think the city has stayed on course with cleaning up the city. To get with CC4C has done a tremendous job. To get it with code enforcement, things probably could be streamlined a little bit more, since it just recently went to the police department. And the city did a great job of attracting some new businesses like Big Five and Tractor Supply. Again, those, if you look at the EIR of Walmart's expansion, those were exactly 2 items that you could clearly identify in that ENR. So the city went after them, and they were able to attract them to come into town. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Purdock. Roads have been a key concern for Clearlake residents, and thanks to Measure V, the city has been doing major grading and paving projects. What areas of the city do you believe Measure V funds need to be focused next?
Again, I don't want to micromanage our Public Works Director. I think I know he has a plan because I've seen it, and we need to follow that. Measure V was huge, and I'd like to thank again the previous council and then Gina Fortuna Dixon while she was on the council with me, because we pushed very hard to get Measure V on the ballot. And then I got to work with these two gentlemen to campaign to get it passed by the 2/3 required vote. I think that the city has a systematic way of going in and fixing the roads, but as we looked at, when we look at Dam Road Extension, that's a project that's been on the books for 5 or 6 years. These things don't happen right away. It takes time and planning and EIRs and all the other impact reports that need to be looked at. The other thing that we need to focus on is we only have a limited staff. We have our Public Works Director and we have a city engineer. And if we want to fast-track Measure V, we have to look at what staffing we have to do the RFPs, to reach out and get those contractors that are going to bid on those jobs. And frankly, our staff is pretty stretched thin right now. And so even if we were to try to fast-track it, I don't know that we actually could because we only have some limited staff. And in your previous question, how do we recruit? Well, we need to have good salaries and the availability to open up for new positions. And right now, the city isn't there. But again, with new business and new housing, property tax go up, sales tax go up, and that might generate the revenue that we need to add to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Dirk?
Measure V and the progress we've made with the streets is still a lot on everybody's mind. I think great strides have been made in the avenues with grading and the ditches along the side and stuff like that, but I think there's more to be done. The last couple of bids came in for work. Prices for asphalt sky high, was $200 a ton, if I remember right. Well, normally it goes to $70, $80 a ton. These are all big firms out of county. I think we need to try to find some local contractors. There's 3 of them that are reasonably sized that we should be able to scale down the project a little bit and get our local contractors involved with those. That's what the avenues that I want to go into and see. I think a lot of people, it's a normal reaction. People want to know when your street is going to be done, but we all know that it can't happen overnight. But we do need to see how we can streamline the process of contracting the smaller jobs out and get smaller stuff done, maybe on an incremental basis, but at least get some things done so people can see there's progress being made with the Measure V money. We have over $3 million this year to get things done, but at the same time, contract prices are rising, particularly because of SB 1. If SB 6 is approved, maybe that will slow down, but who knows? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kramer?
Measure V funds have exceeded actually our early projections when we were all campaigning for its passing. We've had also additional funds because we are now a self-help city that are available to us to add to that. So we do have actually more funds than I think we were initially projecting to have. We have the first 2 years, people have been a little bit concerned of why aren't we out there getting the roads fixed right now? We had to gear up to it. We had to hire those 8 or 9 or 10 extra public works personnel that are going to be doing just road work. We've also had to add equipment. We're still needing to add a few more pieces of equipment. But this spring, we really we have started to go. Our gradings of streets has increased, I think, fairly dramatically now. We've done a couple of projects this year with Measure V only funds. I think that will expand. I think we do need to do, and I know our Public Works Director has got plans for the future, but I think we need to review those plans on occasion, make them so they are more streamlined, so they are, so we can have economies of scale in each of those. I think at some point we need to extend to private roads in the future as we get going. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Dirk. This is from the audience. I know that all 3 of you are hardworking, dedicated men working tirelessly to create a vital and strong community here in Clearlake. I also know you have come from different backgrounds. My question to each of you is, what do you have to offer that the other 2 don't have to offer that will convince me that you are the better candidate for city council? Start with Dirk.
I think the one thing that I can bring to the table that's somewhat different than my two other people that are running for council is that I was in business. And I'm also an investor in this town. We have invested over $1 million in Lake County, half of it in the city. And this is a tremendous opportunity here. They really are. And I can bring the experience of being involved with retail developments. Like I said earlier, design, construction, financing, I can bring that expertise to the table, whether the off-ramps for 53 are adequate or not, or all those kind of things. That's what my expertise is. So I think that's somewhat different than the two other gentlemen here.
Thank you. Russ.
Yes, well, first, of course, I'm the incumbent. I can hit the ground running. I'm current on the roads programs, various projects that are involved with the hiring of a police chief. I was here when Big 5 and Tractor Supply came. I was born and raised in Lake County. Growing up here in the 60s and seeing how things were much different, I think I have a perspective that I can offer that is unique. I've been involved with community services for the past 15 years since I returned to Lake County full-time. I was involved with the community garden over at the community center, both preparing the garden area, growing the irrigation lines. I continue to help at the community center. I've coordinated the effort to certify the community center as an evacuation shelter, which will be done pretty soon. When I first came back, I led the effort on several projects, the softball field at Lower Lake High School and the VOAG program. I led the effort to bring that here. I'd get things done from I start them and I finish them, and I think that's a quality that I like and will bring to the council.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
I came with a great deal of experience, 24 years in government. I understand the budget. I understand the object codes. I have been endorsed by 3 of the sitting council members, Councilmember Overton, Councilmember Harris, and Councilmember Nick Bennett. They appointed me unanimously twice to serve as your mayor. I think that shows that I have the leadership skills to continue. I created 2 ordinances. Those ordinances help to alleviate some homeless issues around what was Ray's and what is now Tractor Supply and Big 5, so we could bring that developer in, show them what we had, and show them the opportunities there. We are a city that is on the move. We are seen as people from outside who are looking at this as a place to invest, but they're still kind of sitting in the fringe. So we have a lot more work to do. And the reason that I'm running again is because I want to finish what I started. I'm not a politician. I actually don't like that word. I'm not looking to move myself up through the ranks or see myself moving toward the state level. I want to work in my hometown. I want to make changes here that are positive for our kids, positive for our seniors, and make this a safer place to live and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful area that we call home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Kramer. The city of Clearlake is undergoing significant change at this time. How would you describe the city's current reputation?
Improving. I think I get more and more comments when I go to meetings, especially at the other end of the lake, about the great things that Clearlake is doing, something that I never heard in the past. Our city is becoming cleaner. We have much improved code enforcement, and it's still improving. The roads are improving at a fairly rapid rate, and we need to continue on that. But people are beginning to discover Clearlake and the great things about Clearlake. My hope is to keep that pushing forward with the increase in our tourism, as well as obviously bringing in retail trade and addressing the homeless problem. And I think that's something that we're doing, and we're leading the county in doing with the Restoration House, now with the Hope Center coming, and we have some other things going for transition housing. I think that's all improving, and it's going to continue to get better. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
Thank you. When I was elected 4 years ago, marijuana growing was out of control. Our homicide rate was through the roof. And I want to compliment and thank you very much for recognizing that the city of Clearlake is on the move and our reputation is improving, because I've been a big part of that. One of 5 people that sat up here and have been making decisions to improve the city. I want to continue that. The reputation of the city of Clearlake has been improving, but again, it's been a lot of work and a lot of time spent by staff and by the 5 of us that sat up here, and that's why I want to continue doing this. There is still a lot of work to do. I don't drive around this city with my eyes closed thinking how wonderful it is. There's still a lot of work to do. We still have a homeless problem, as my opponents have brought to light. I initiated the Mayor's Council on Homelessness with Stacy Mattina, who was the mayor in Lakeport at the time, and what came out of some initial meetings is Project Restoration and Hope Rising. And I'm very proud of that. I was at the ground floor, and I appreciate their support in this, but I was at the front door when we pitched these ideas, and now we've had some tremendous successes in transitioning people from homelessness into housing through better services, wraparound services that have really made differences in people's lives, and it's very inspiring, and I hope to continue that in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dirk.
I think the reputation of the city is improving. So is the whole county. If you look at the biggest new industry in the county is probably the wine growing, and more and more people are coming into Lake County for wine tasting and tasting our delicious wines, which is half the price from over the hill, but just as good as quality. And you see more and more people coming into the county. The city of Clearlake needs to start taking advantage of that a little bit more. There's no tasting rooms within the city. I like to see some of those. But I think the quality of the lake has improved over the last couple of years, and I think the bass fishing is obviously a big part of our economy here. That's also improving. I mean, the bass industry this is the 3rd best bass fishing lake in the country, and over $40 billion a year being spent on outdoor boating activities. We can take some more part of that $40 billion. If we are the 3rd biggest bass fishing lake, we can take some advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Purdock. Clearlake stands out in the county for having implemented commercial cannabis rules. What is your personal opinion of the direction of the city as it pertains to the new cannabis industry? And how will your personal opinion impact your decisions if you're elected?
Well, as I said, cannabis was out of control when I was first elected, and we initially went with a 0 tolerance because, in my opinion, we needed to get our hands around it and get our city to a safe city where we didn't and reduce our homicide rate. That didn't work, and so we needed to come to the table, and again, as your mayor, we called for an ad hoc committee to be formed, and it was important to bring everybody from all sides of this issue to the table for open discussions and how we could, at first, create growing areas for medicinal marijuana growing. I do believe we were leading not just our area and region, but also throughout the state in some of the issues that we had to address and the good things that came from that. And now that same ad hoc committee, with a couple of changes, has continued this process. My concern with cannabis, I mean, we need to recognize it. It is a business, and we need to help them to those that are interested in building those businesses. We need to help them to thrive. I want to see them succeed. My concern is, do we want to sell out the entire city and all the areas that could be used for other things? Investors diversify, and we need to be diversified when we look at our city, as the other candidates mentioned. 30% third best bass fishing lake in the world, as far as I know. And we can capitalize on a lot of that tourism, and we're missing the boat with that. And that's just one aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Dirk?
I was on the planning commission when we approved the first cannabis businesses in town, and it's a new business, so there are a lot of expectations. Being raised originally in the Netherlands, we've had some experience with that 40 years ago, and it's not going to be a big tax item for the city. It will to start off with, but even in Colorado, where they had some initial couple of years ago where they legalized marijuana, the tax revenue wasn't as big as they predicted. I think I look at it just as if we approve a business, does it comply with the zoning laws? Is it the right place for them? And look at it the same as if it was a liquor store or a brewery. We look. That's how I would look at it. Thank you.
Very quickly, when did the Netherlands legalize it?
Well, before I left, it was, which was in 1972.
So you left right after it was legalized?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. Thank you for that piece of trivia. Russ Kramer.
Our personal, we've enacted personal cannabis ordinances that are bringing the illegal growing of cannabis in the city under more control. Our code enforcement is doing a great job of enforcing those new ordinances, and I think we're bringing that part of the cannabis industry under control. Our legal commercial cannabis industry is another thing that we've been looking at. I do serve on the ad hoc committee for cannabis. It can generate significant revenue, and I recognize that for the city. That'll certainly be part of our economic development in the city, and should be. That said, I think we need to recognize both the positive and the possible negative impacts of the industry. We don't know as much about the cannabis industry as do the growers and the processors, and we need to learn that before we really let things run a little bit wider. We need to take a measured approach to the cannabis industry in the interim. Those laws or ordinances can be adjusted later on as we become more comfortable with them. I also think that there's a part of the city that needs to be reserved for tourism and not for cannabis.
Thank you. Next question from the audience. We start with Dirk. California is in the midst of the second longest economic expansion in history, and a recession in the near term is inevitable. What steps does the city need to take in order to prepare for an economic downturn?
As a business owner, I went through a couple of economic downturns, and there are a couple of things that I did during those times. You try to maintain key personnel, and sometimes, tough to say, kind of weed out some of them that don't work out as good as you hoped. And you need to cut cost as quickly as you can, and you try to save money any place you can to keep the core part of your business, or in this case, the city, functioning properly. Like code enforcement, I don't think we should ever abandon that again, because we've learned something from that. So those are the kind of things I would be looking at, or helping to look at.
Thank you. Russ Kramer.
I believe that we need to attract stable businesses to the city that can withstand, that we believe can withstand a downturn. Yes, I do believe we need to protect our core staff. Code enforcement would definitely be a large part of that. And I think we need to take a hard look at those businesses that can withstand such a downturn. And we need to be in good financial shape going into a downturn, so we need to always have those reserves available to help us ride one out. So, thank you.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
Thank you. Good fiscal management is very, very important. And in the previous years I served on the city council and as mayor, we tried to save as much money as we could for a contingency fund. And I appreciate the finance leadership that we've seen. I worked with a guy by the name of Kelly Cox when I was at the county, and he was a master of this. And I also remember as a commander being asked to trim the fat, so to speak, and so we didn't have to lay people off. I don't believe in looking for grants that have a tail or we have to match when it comes to personnel. It's nice to be able to hire people when you've got a budget that will sustain their wages and benefits, and I've always believed that. It's just good fiscal management. You don't want to overextend. And if reelected, that is exactly what I would like to work with our city planner and manager, because that's essential. I do believe that we will experience another downturn, obviously, but 2008 was pretty devastating, and frankly, I'm glad I wasn't on the council because they had to make some really hard choices on what to do. I concur that we need to continue and never let our code enforcement go. That was a huge hit when we had to let code enforcement go, because that brought blight and complete disrepair among the neighborhoods within this city. So it'd be tough, but we'd have to sharpen our pencils and figure out what we're gonna have to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Kramer. Homelessness remains an issue in Clearlake. All of you have alluded to it tonight. In situations in the city, people have been removed from one area, and many will just simply migrate to another area, and little changes. So what can you suggest to make a dent in homelessness in Clearlake?
Well, I think we're already doing that. Restoration House has been a great start to that. They've been very successful in the year that they've been in business. We need to collaborate, continue to collaborate with Adventist Health and with other agencies in the county and also private organizations to continue that collaboration. The Hope Center that's coming up shortly, that was just approved in planning last week, or earlier this week rather, I think are going to add to that help for the homeless situation. I think we need to reach out to our Veterans Association to help with that segment of the homeless that are veterans. They deserve our help, and we need to do whatever we can to give it to them. I've had some preliminary talks with folks with regard to that. Pushing forward, we need to have transition housing after they've gone through the initial counseling, and we are, as a city, talking with exploring ideas with both NCO and Cornerstone Villages to see what we can do to offer that. Going forward, and ultimately, the cure is more jobs. We need to offer more jobs in the city to try to reduce unemployment and also homelessness. So, thank you.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
Well, again, I'm proud to say I was part of Restoration House and Hope Center, and we've already had 30 people transition from homelessness to various stages of housing. They get support both medically, they get support in finding housing, and several have actually found good paying jobs. So what will we do with that? We're going to continue it with Hope Center. And from Hope Center, then projections, we should be able to house roughly 100 people per year, both through Project Restoration and Hope Center. There's a third phase of that. We're looking for a location somewhere in the county for family units, where we might be able to start housing some of our homeless families or those people that are right on the verge of losing their homes. We'll have a place for them. But then we have to be realistic. We do have a veteran population that is homeless, and we have others that come through town or stay here because this is their home, and they don't want housing. A couple of years ago, we looked at the COTS model, and I've been over to Marysville looking at some of the issues there. I've been up to Arcata and looked at 3 different housing projects there that they've worked on for homeless and those that are critically about to lose housing. And we need to look at this as an individual thing. The old days of creating a warming center is a Band-Aid. We need to look at healing the individual and getting them back on their feet. And it was my pleasure to work with Senator Mike McGuire. He got funding for No Place Like Home, and that's also helped out.
Thank you. Dirk.
All the studies say it starts with housing first, and then it also something personal happened to us. One morning I was driving out behind the building that we own, and sure enough, there's a gentleman living underneath our building, and I had no idea where to bring this gentleman to. Where did I bring it to? But finally, now with Hope Center and Russ, and actually we too have been working with Adventist Health on helping the Hope Center things and becoming a reality. And it's a program that duplicates cots out of Petaluma, which our Rotary friends of ours are very much involved in. It obviously requires a collaborative effort between stakeholders like the hospital, the city, religious organizations, and the county social services projects. So I think we can do it. We are on the road to solving part of the problem. But again, it starts with housing first. Every study says that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Purdock. How and where were you educated? And what aspects of your education will you bring in your toolbox should you be elected?
Well, I went to Lower Lake High School, graduated there on June 13th. It was a Friday, actually. Then I went on and I got my 4-year degree from Sac State, go Hornets. And I came back and spent 24 years in a variety of different positions at the Lake County Sheriff's Office. And believe me, working nights, graveyards, weekends, holidays, you get a real eye on what happens in a population. I know this county very, very well. And I think that's probably my best education. But honestly, I've taken a new position, and I believe until your eyelids close for the last time, we need to keep learning, growing, and becoming closer to our Heavenly Father. So if I can get my master's degree, that's one of the things I would like to do here in the near future, because, again, building yourself only helps the community, helps your family, and that's what we're supposed to do, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dirk.
I was born and raised in the Netherlands, in a small town 10 miles north of Amsterdam. I earned a bachelor's degree in what was called construction engineering from a college in Amsterdam. I immigrated to the United States in 1972 and attended Diablo Valley College and got an AA degree in international relations. I have no idea why, but I did. Like I said, my education is in business management. Before I started my own business, I was with an engineering company that we grew from 10 employees to 130 employees, which was quite a challenge. Which in '94 it imploded because of the economy. I don't remember if anybody remembers that recession. And then that's when I started my own business. So running a business and being involved in engineering and construction and design, that's my educational background. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Kramer.
I was also born and raised in Lake County. I graduated from Lower Lake High School in 1966. I went on to UC Davis, where I earned my bachelor's degree in agricultural business management. Came back here with the idea that well, I really didn't have an idea what I was going to do. I cut wood for a year until my mother gave me an ultimatum that I needed to get a real job. So I went to work. I got a job offer from Bank of America in their appraisal department. Started in San Jose and then transferred to Chico, where I became a senior appraiser in all aspects of appraisal, which I think is something it still serves me well. Moved on to the bank's trust department, began managing agricultural properties for the bank, and then into another I call the bad bank in Bank of America, our Ag REO unit, which I learned about adversity the first time in managing properties. I bring all that back here in 2003. I was here off and on during that time anyway. All through that time we have a family-owned ranch, which I've been involved in the operation and management of, and had an agricultural consulting service at the time. I believe all of the tools all of the education I gained along the way has helped me to understand budgeting, move into budgeting for public agencies, and I think it will serve me well going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Dirk. What forms of outreach will you utilize to involve residents in the decision-making process and stay connected with them if you're elected?
My logo, if you see my signs, orange, is I want to be your voice at the council. I would hope to set up a time where anybody could come to me here. I'm retired, so I have all the time in the world to help the city. So I would hope to everybody that wants to contact me, I'll respond to, which we're kind of already doing with having my name out there as being on the council, being a candidate for the council. So outreach, go to a lot of different meetings. Sometimes my wife says, do you have another one today? Yes. Talk as many people and listen. I think I'm a good listener, so thank you.
Thank you. Russ Kramer.
Yeah, throwing out logos, I'll say mine, building on positive change. My outreach, on my flyers and cards, I've given my contact information. I over the last 15 years, I've learned a lot more how to listen than I did before. I tended to before coming back and becoming involved in community service, I tended to talk more and listen less. Now I listen a lot, and I try to, if I don't know the answer, I try to get it for the con them or take them on. I think transparency is very important, and my answers will be, I do pride myself on knowing where to go and to get them, and I'll bring that. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Burdock.
Thank you. Past performance, I think, is the best indicator for future performance. And again, as your prior leader on the city council, invite the public, let them come in, be a part of this process. Frankly, it was unfortunate when we would hold what I thought was a very important meeting and there'd be no one sitting in the audience. Hopefully, they got to see it on the TV, but if they wanted to provide input, they had our first town hall meetings, essentially, where we gave a state of the city report. That was very important. It was huge during the fires when I served as your mayor that we could have a meeting here, not briefed on the current fire situation and how long they were going to be evacuated. And while we were forgotten initially, I'm thankful to know some people in Lakeport and at the state. I was able to get the meetings here. I need to be involved and engaged, and I will continue to do that. I served on your fire board, mainly because I didn't see the train come years, thankfully got away from that. But I seem to gravitate toward leadership positions because that's what I enjoy.
Next question, we start with Russ Kramer. Options currently available in Clearlake? And does the city have enough options? If not, what will you do to
sit on the Lake Transit Authority committee? We do have reasonable transportation. I think the buses stop here fairly frequently. Probably would like to see a little an increase in availability for our seniors. And other things unique to them, especially if they don't have a car anymore or not able to drive anymore, I think is something that I don't see a taxi service. There probably isn't. It's not much of a taxi service here now, but I do think our Lake Transit buses are doing a credible job here. I'd like to we have, of course, the transit station coming out by Woodland College. That's the transit situation in Clearlake as well. But I think more of a focus on senior needs.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
Thank you. One of the reasons I really pushed for Measure V and to get it on the ballot was because our Lake County Transit Authority, they were breaking leaf springs and axles by bringing their buses. They were talking about discontinuing particular transportation lines. I also sat on Lake County Transit Authority, and that was huge. But we do have Uber here. Obviously, we have Lyft here, and we do have a couple of needs continue to grow. And as our roads improve, I think that, you know, it's inevitable we may increase the bus stops. I was involved with Rotary in the building of bus shelters for those riders, and I was proud to be a part of that. I was part of the decision-making when we decided to go hub at just in front of the Keck and Woodland College, because I think that's going to be a much better location for it and a much safer location to race, now Big Five sports. So there is good transportation. Our problem is getting people out of the county who want to get out of the county and get back into the county when they want to take trips to the Bay Area. Months ago, how they could do that with the buses, at least on a daily or maybe bi-weekly, not daily, weekly or possibly bi-weekly, and I think we need more of that.
Dirk.
I think transportation is our neighborhood. Buses don't go past Gooseneck. They still drive, but they're concerned that when they can't drive, how can they get to the grocery store? And the people involved in it yet, but I will when I get a chance to talk to, I believe it's Mr. Parker. Am I correct on that?
Carl Parker,
yeah. To need a ride every day. They need a ride a couple of times a week. If it's scheduled, I like to see them go past Gooseneck. Again, the roads are pretty horrendous, but we still need to do it. But once you get past the city limit sign, the roads are reasonable. So I think you should be able to make the loop all the way on for Bank to get back here. And there are probably in other areas that we need additional service, maybe not on a daily basis, but on a part-time basis to some of the areas that we can help our seniors with.
Thank you. Real quick, just a quick follow-up for all of you. What about biking? Do you think the city of Clearlake lends itself to more bike lanes, to more?
It is where our streets are wide enough to allow for safe biking. I do think that biking with exercise options that would be good for our folks to be able to take advantage of. I think Austin's Park, well, not so much for biking. We have the trail along that's planned for along the lake. I think that we also need to have more walking trails available going forward. That's something that we're looking at in council at this time.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
Street expansion on Phillips. We incorporated bike lanes on both sides. It's absolutely something we need to do. With Measure V funding coming in much higher than anticipated, I think that's something we can do first. We need to make sure that the people that are using bicycles to get to and fro have safe routes, because honestly, there's some roads that just because of the poor condition of the streets can be hazardous. You end up over the handlebars and on your noggin. So I hope in the future, absolutely, and I'm very interested in seeing that happen because it is a great form of exercise.
Dirk?
Yeah, the bike lanes are being striped in downtown, but again, they don't go very much past that. Personally, I'm kind of looking at electric bikes and those kind of things where you can go up and down the hills a lot easier. That's another option. But we do need to create bicycle racks and all those things at the transportation center and at the bus stops, so people can get from their house to the bus stop by their bike and then go on public transportation.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Purdock. If you received a $1 million grant to use for the city any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Parks. I would love to see phase one of our parks and the build out. I just absolutely enjoy when I'm driving down and I see families using the parks. I see people of all ages walking and getting some exercise here at Austin Park. And we don't have the funding right now to build out our parks as much as we would like to. So if we could build it out all at once, if you haven't seen the plan, anyone, you need to come down and see the plans for both Austin Park and Highlands Park. Highlands Park being a senior park is what we're calling it. Both would have amphitheaters and availability for some music. I would love to see some of the street dances like they have in other areas around our county hosted here, not in competition, but in support of, because we have an amazing area that we live in, and people need to come and enjoy that. And along with more beautiful parks come people who want to come and use our parks and spend money in our town and eat at our restaurants and maybe move here like they used to when I was a kid, and you could see families walking hand in hand up and down Lakeshore Drive and Olympic Drive to the different venues that we had at the time. I can't bring that back, but we can definitely build upon it, and that's my vision for the future. So $1 million, that would go a long way for our parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Dirk?
I second Mr. Purdock. I think I would put it in the parks. If we can get phase 1 built, have the stage built with that, so we can have those concerts here that they have in Lakeport, and have festivities like the Pear Festival here in this town. I think that's what I would spend it on in the park. We have part of the park is in design, so it could be shovel ready fairly quickly. Thank you.
Russ Kramer?
I wish I would have gone first.
Don't you?
Parks. We need to finish Austin Parks. That design that we're discussing has been there for several years. We haven't been able to move forward on it because we don't have the money. Austin Park, I'd love to see we've got a great amphitheater design that you all should see, with pointed so the audience will be looking out at the lake and out at Mount Canocti beyond. Parks absolutely have to come first. That's what I would spend $1 million on. The Highlands Park, again, has got a senior center, or a senior flavor to it, whereas Austin's is a family oriented, or more so, with the playgrounds and all those things that is with it. If we had a little bit of it left over, I would like to use it on the senior center, the community center, for the senior center, to offer them some exercise equipment and other things that have been proposed by our senior center manager, actually. So that would be where I'd spend $1 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, parks. So great minds think alike, it seems like.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Next question, we start with Say. It has a long business district, Lakeshore Drive. What ideas do you have to make Lakeshore Drive vibrant and attractive to business and visitors?
From a planning perspective, I think you need to have a mixture of both retail and housing, where people are living closer to the retail, so you get little hubs of housing and retail. I think that's the concept. In the planning, there's a corridor plan where we can only allow single stories along the lake and maintain views to the lake. Those are all excellent ideas, and hopefully we can actually approve a new project that comes in like that. That would be wonderful. So that's what, from a planning perspective, I would like to see little hubs of both retail and housing. The housing probably more on the both on the lake side and on the land side of Lakeshore Drive.
Thank you. Russ Kramer.
I think that Lakeshore Drive, especially the lake side of Lakeshore Drive, has got this great big resource out there that we have got to take advantage of, and that's the lake. It should be hospitality, tourism oriented. Again, when I grew up, 10 years before when he grew up, the people were really walking. I mean, Lakeshore Drive, I always likened it, if you folks have seen the movie American Graffiti, Lakeshore Drive was the same. It was that vibrant use of it. There was a magic about Clearlake Highlands that I would like to see come back. I think we've got a tourism industry and a move to increase our tourism industry, and we need to embrace that. So yes, Lakeshore Drive to me needs to be oriented towards hospitality services. Restaurants, we had probably half a dozen of them back in the dinner houses back in the 40s and 50s that were first-rate dinner houses. We had resorts at that time. I'm not suggesting we go back to the 60s, but I think we go back to the spirit of the 60s with, these guys are laughing, with the 21st century flair. And that's what I want to see. Thank you.
So were you cruising in classic cars up and down
No,
Lakeshore?
I was cruising in my old 57 Chevy, but...
Which is now a classic car.
Which is now a classic, yes.
Thought it was a tractor, a farmall or something.
All right.
Russ Purdock.
Well, now I guess I get to, even though I'm 10 years younger, Sam Sanchez was the city historian, and now I get to play that part. We have a plan. We've done the corridor studies. We looked at cities like Monterey and how do they develop their downtown. The plan is in place. We just need to implement it. We've taken information, we've opened up City Hall, and we've asked the community to come in and give us their ideas, and we got their ideas, and they're shelved someplace. We just need to implement it. We have a fantastic opportunity, as Mr. Kramer said, with that lake out there, and we're not capitalizing on it. And so as we build out, we need to look at those plans. We paid a lot of money for them, and I think they're just as relevant today as they were when they were initially written up. And 4 years ago, when I was elected to serve on this council, we invited the community in, and we got their idea on building design, on our commercial corridor, and we haven't done anything with it since. And I understand why. We have had a lot of fires we had to put out, no pun intended. But, I mean, we had to hit the ground running with a lot of other things, as I mentioned earlier, trying to get our city so people would feel safe. But now as things are settling in and we're continuing to progress and staff has the time to begin that work, now's the time. So I think we just need to implement the plans we already have on the books. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Kramer. What's the number one issue you're hearing about from community members as you've been running for office this fall?
I don't know that there is a number one issue. Homelessness does come up a lot, and how we deal with it. We've talked about that earlier. I think we do all of those things with homelessness. We also have a duty to the rest of our citizens that there is a certain segment of the homeless that really don't want to be anything but homeless, want to live where they live. And I think we need to encourage those folks to live somewhere else. Revenue, though, to me is still, revenue generation, economic development is still my first concern, and I think that's a concern of folks that they want more things done. They want the parks worked on, and I agree with that. We need revenue to do that. So that's where I come back to on my first priority on that focus. But I think homelessness, the parks, and the senior are the three things that I kind of give equal view to. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ Purdock.
Crime, crime, crime. We have got to get a handle on that, and that's what I usually hear the most about. Maybe it's because of my history, working in that profession. Each individual council member, though I didn't take this anywhere else, has shared with me specific examples of things that they witnessed or fell victim to, including our mayor, of why crime was a problem for he and his family. Councilman Harris, Councilwoman Overton, we've all experienced crime in this city, and that's what I hear about. And again, that's my prime focus. I can't wait till I get reelected. I'm being very optimistic, and I want to go to work with the chief and seeing what we can do to combat that. I think he's sitting in the perfect position with animal control, code enforcement, and of course his good team of law enforcement professionals that are working at CPD. But we need to enhance that. We need to support them. The next thing is roads. We're doing some great things with Measure V, but people are anxious because they see the other people in the neighborhood getting their roads done. But on their street, they're not seeing anything. But we just need to explain to them, the roads didn't get bad overnight. It took 40 years to develop, and we got a 20-year plan with a sunset. We may need to extend that. But I honestly see with the increased revenue, we will be able to put back not just better resurfaced roads, but even enhance that. And that's what I'm looking for to do. Crime and roads.
Thank you. Dirk?
Roads. And they always talk about the shopping center at the airport. Those are the two things I hear the most about. I think with the amount of money that we're now getting in for roads, we should be able to get some plans ready to go so we can actually add the pavement portion of it. It's the critical path. At this point, cost has prevented the council to sign some contracts for that. So we need to see what happens with SB 6. On the airport plan, I would love to get involved in that because that's one of my expertise in dealing with shopping centers and design of retail things. So hopefully I can help with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we start with Russ Purdock. What will you do to provide safer recreation opportunities for our youth?
I am so proud of the work that's been done at our Clearlake Youth Center with Lauren Freeman and all the people that are surrounding him and seeing that that's being done. But, you know, this has always been something that's happened and been complained about in our city, is there just isn't anything for the kids to do. Of course, when I ever complained to my parents about that, I was given a shovel or some other task to do around the house, and so I didn't complain too much about not having anything to do. But I do think that there's a lot of programs, and we just need to plug our kids in. I think one of the biggest things that we've got within our little community here is we've got a lot of absentee parents that kind of checked out, and they've left the kids on their own to do and fend for themselves. And so whether it's an Explore post at the police department or a PAL program or, you know, expanding our Little League and soccer programs to bring them maybe from the Middletown area, and we can have some more soccer programs here locally. You know, we've got some pretty incredible things, and we've developed some great relationships and collaboration with Canocti Unified School District. I just think with our after-school programs and other things like that, we can look outward toward other communities to see what's been successful in keeping the youth occupied. But we also need to develop them so they can be good citizens as they become adults.
Thank you. Dirk?
The youth center boxing program was amazing. I don't know if anybody has been there, but they have like 50 kids. I was totally surprised by how many people they help out there. It's those kind of programs that we need to focus on. I think there's our Hispanic ethnic population. They're soccer players, so they want to see probably a soccer field someplace, and I think we need to kind of focus on that too. I don't see any soccer goals in Austin Park, but we need to get those done so we can get some of the Hispanic kids playing soccer because that's their passion. Those kind of programs, after-school programs, should be more prevalent at this point.
Thank you. Russ Kramer?
Yes, our youth center, I think, is offering expanded things. Their boxing program is fantastic. I think our Little League, South Shore Little League complex, want to do some expansions. I think we need to support that. Little League has always been near and dear to my heart growing up. That was the only thing that we had was youth baseball. We didn't have soccer and those other things we have today. But soccer is important. We have a burgeoning Hispanic population, especially, that are really interested in soccer. So I definitely believe that we should support that as well. One of my proudest achievements was at Lower Lake High School. I led the fight to get a softball complex built there. They had a little short field up in one corner that had about 100-foot long left field, which was absolutely inadequate. I led the fight to get the fundraising done, brought my equipment in and prepared the field, did the preparation for it. I did the trenching of all of the irrigation lines for it, and we got it there. And it's a beautiful facility now, used not only by our high school students, but also by youth sports as well. So that's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from our audience? Anybody else have anything? One? Okay. Did you want to, Jeff, do you want to get it, bring it up to me? Yeah. Let me ask a quick question while Rick's writing down his question. And just real quickly, just from each of you, and you've all been here different lengths of time, but I'm kind of curious, for each of you, and we can start with Dirk, what are the tipping points you've seen for the community? You know, when you saw things kind of go maybe bad, and then you saw things kind of come back. I mean, you've all been here long enough to where you've seen some changes. So I'm kind of curious about a good and or bad tipping point that you've seen.
The first time I came here was in 1972. We went to, my ex-father-in-law had a cabin on Honeymoon Cove, so I've been coming here a long time. We're sitting at the meat section now, Safeway. Okay. I think the tipping point was just in general, the economy has gotten better over the last 10 years. How long it will stay that way? We hope it will stay that way for a long time. I think the council has done an excellent job, and the city staff has done an excellent job to push certain programs that make the city a better place. Their strategic plan was an excellent way of dealing with that. So I give kudos to the staff and to the previous council.
Thank you. Russ Kramer.
Yeah, again, I told you about the 60s and how things were great then. I left in the early 70s, and sometime, I don't know, towards the late 70s or something, I think that Clearlake Highlands at that time and the county as a whole didn't continue to evolve in their resort and tourism industry, and basically became old and outdated. The city was formed in the 80s, and it struggled along with not enough revenue, not enough income for quite a long time. I think we hit bottom in 2008. We've had a long recovery from that recession. I think in the last several years, we have seen that tipping point to start to improve. I think we're now seeing great improvement. As I said before, we're getting compliments from Lakeport. I always indicate the Mason-Dixon line somewhere between Findlay and Kelseyville, where the folks on that side don't talk to us, and we think that we're being badgered. But that's breaking down. This county is recognizing that we're doing some good things, and I want to see that go forward.
Thank you. Russ Purduck.
Again, living here my whole life, I've seen it tip back and forth probably at least a dozen times. I was proud to vote for the city and corporation in 1980, and I saw problems with the police department, issues of heavy-handedness, that type of thing, and then I've seen some great things come to the city with Operation Safe Streets, and having been a part of that. I've seen good and bad councils. I've seen councils where they actually almost came to blows up here. Sorry, Chuck, but it wasn't him.
I wasn't going to bring that one up.
But you can't get something done when you're at loggerheads, and there needs to be governance, and that's one of the things that I absolutely know I can bring because I've been there. I haven't agreed with the other council members from time to time, but positive decisions and moving the city forward has got to be the focus, and you have to put your ego aside. This isn't a place for ego. It's a place for humility and understanding and listening, and again, that's what I'll bring. Reelected.
Thank you. Okay.
Did you ask, Rick? She's scowling.
Well, there's like this is a three-part question, and I think we've kind of asked some of these, so, but I'll go ahead and just read these out, and we'll start with Russ Kramer. So the first question is, what is going to be done about sidewalk and curbs in business down Lakeshore Drive? Second is fixing paved streets that fall apart from Cottonwood to Redwood streets. And forming a municipal, and the third is forming a municipal assessment improvement bond, 30 years infrastructure plan. Is that existing, or are you talking about creating one? Creating one, okay.
Forming a bond district to take care of those infrastructure improvements that the businesses over the last 30 years have been able to, don't have anything that's connecting. Everything is hodgepodge all the way down Lakeshore. There's no safe walkways or curbs.
Okay, so the first one is sidewalks and curbs in the businesses in downtown, in the Lakeshore Drive area. That's the first one. Fixing paved.
Can we go with that one first?
Yeah, let's
and
go
then
with that one first. So I'll give you 30 seconds on that one, then I'll flag you.
Okay. I think where possible, curbs and gutters are definitely needed. We have some areas along Lakeshore Drive where there's just not the street is fairly narrow. We barely have room for parking, or we don't have room for parking. But obviously, curbs and gutters and sidewalks are something we need to focus on where it's at all possible.
The second part, fixing paved streets that fall apart from Cottonwood to Redwood streets.
I didn't hear the last part of the
Oh,
question.
Cottonwood to Redwood streets.
I've got to admit that I'm drawing a blank on Cottonwood
Olympic.
and Redwood. Pardon me?
On Olympic.
On Olympic, yeah. They're in the mix. They will come up. They will be repaved. I don't have the exact date on that, but certainly they will be part of that the program, the Measure V program, to repave and bring those up to a much increased, better standard.
And the last one is about forming a municipal assessment improvement bond for 30 years for an infrastructure plan.
I think that'd be a great idea. I think you're going to need to get the business owners on Lakeshore Drive together to be able to bring that about, and that's going to be a large or tall order, quite frankly. Probably would have, but again, it requires each of those business owners to want to get that done. And certainly I think we would encourage that. I would encourage that if they wanted to start that.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go to Russ Burdock next. Now, let me know if you need me to reread any of these.
Oh, I absolutely need you to reread.
Okay, all right. All right, so first one, sidewalks, what to do about sidewalks and curbs in along businesses, for businesses down Lakeshore Drive. So I'll give you just 30 seconds. You want to start with that one?
That's fine.
Okay.
Everybody knows that's a huge expense. Depending on the frontage you have on Lakeshore Drive, it could be anywhere from $30,000, $40,000 up to $60,000 per business. That could put the businesses out of business. Of course, there is a requirement on a new build-out when you're putting a business in that doesn't have the curbs and gutters to do that. But again, that's a huge expense. When we look at some of the work that's already been done prior to, and I can't remember the proposition that passed that required I forget the term of it now in the hot seat, but you're required to have a 2/3 vote to pass that, and we tried to continue to do that. I think we even had the street, Lakeshore Drive, surveyed in order to get all of our sidewalks online, but once that proposition passed, it pretty much killed the opportunity to do that, and I think we'd be facing the same thing today, Rick.
Okay, fixing paved streets that fall apart from Cottonwood to Redwood streets.
We are working on that with Measure V. I saw that they had graded some of the streets in there. They had been paved before. They're being filled with road base temporarily. Again, with the increased revenues from Measure V that were unanticipated, we're ahead of the game. I'm hopeful that we could hopefully repave those things because that's what they need.
The last one, where do you stand on forming a municipal assessment improvement bond for an infrastructure plan?
Prior to Measure V, we were looking with a couple of different neighborhoods at what they might need to do to get a bond in order to do that. It's very expensive. You have to go through the whole election process. You have to really campaign within that district. I don't think we could go citywide in order to implement that. And of course, the city staff is going to be very impacted by putting all the work together to get that done.
Thanks, sorry about that.
It's all right.
Tricky, a three-part question.
It's tricky with a 30-second window.
Okay, what I'm going to do is flag you at 30 seconds, so
Okay, all right.
I think I should have explained what I was doing with
She's going to ask you a half-an-hour answer
Yeah, exactly.
in 30 seconds.
Okay, so do you need me to reread the various
Yes,
parts?
yes, I
Okay.
do.
The first part, what are you going to do about sidewalks and curbs for businesses down Lakeshore Drive?
As a city, we can only require them to put them in if it requires a discretionary permit, kind of rezoning or any kind of discretionary permit. We can extract concessions in for them to put curb gutter and sidewalk in. That's the only time the really city can require it. Okay. And Measure V money is probably dedicated to part of your area of street from Cottonwood, and I forgot the other name.
Cottonwood to Redwood Streets.
The Redwood Streets. Measure V money, I don't know the exact timing of that, but that will be part of it. The other question was?
The other one was, where do you stand on forming a municipal assessment improvement bond for an infrastructure plan?
Yeah, it's you need to create an assessment district, which is then funded by bonds. You would have 2/3 majority on it. It takes a long time to get all those businesses signed up and to do that. It'd be a long road to get it done, but it's possible. I was involved in several of them, one in Concord and one in San Ramon Valley Boulevard, before all the big businesses come in, Chevron and Pac Bell at that point. So it can be done, but you have to have willing business owners along the way. You have to have a 2/3 majority before you can create an assessment district, and that's how you would have to do it. Huh?
Assessment district.
Thank you. All right, we are now going to go into closing statements. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to wrap up. You've covered a lot of territory tonight. You can speak about anything you'd like. Maybe something you started to talk about earlier and I cut you off, maybe something that wasn't brought up at all. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order. So we'll start with Dirk, and again, 2 minutes to speak about anything you'd like to say in wrapping up tonight.
Talking about leadership, I was the president of the local Rotary Club. I was the chairman of the Lake Area Rotary Club Association, Fire Relief, chair of the District 5130, Fire Relief. For the Lake Area Rotary Club Association, we raised over $1 million in 2015, 16, and 17, and implemented a business grant program that was very well received. And for chair for the District 5130, we covered Napa, Mendocino, Sonoma, and Lake County. We raised close to $2 million for small businesses. I was the chair of the Planning Commission. I'm the member of a Measure V Oversight Committee, and I'm a member of the City Clearlake Steering Committee for the Zoning Code. Both my wife and I, a little personal background. I started a business in 1994. I retired, sold the business a couple of years ago, and have been living here full-time since 2012. I have the experience in retail development, and I'm a good leader. But there's one other thing I want to say. The three of us here, like Russ indicated earlier, several years ago I went to a couple of city council meetings, and it was pretty embarrassing, but I think you actually can't go wrong with any of the three of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Russell Purdock.
Thank you. When I ran 4 years ago and you guys elected me, I promised to do the best I could, and I think that, again, my past performance can predict the future if elected this time. These are two good men sitting on either side of me, and it's been a pleasure working with them in Rotary and working with them in either Planning Commission, Fire Board, our Lower Lake football program to raise funds for the kids. It's just been a pleasure. So regardless of who gets elected, I know we'll work well together, and hey, there's another election coming up in a couple of years for who doesn't make it. But I threw my hat in the ring because I want to continue the work that I started 4 years ago. We've had a really good run, and I want to continue that run. I think my leadership has been proven. I shouldn't have to beat that drum too much, but just in case you wanted to know, I served as your mayor for 2 years already, and I served on the council for over 3. I wanted to initiate action for the homeless, and I was able to create that through great collaboration, and I can't give enough kudos to Adventist Health for what was a $300,000 startup that ended up being Restoration House. And again, kudos to Shelley Trumbo for leading the fight for that. Got Measure V on the ballot. You know, again, I worked with these guys to get the measure passed, but we had to get it on the ballot, and I wanted something that the voters agreed upon. We got $25,000 from Lake Area Planning, so we could actually do voter calls, emails, and we learned from that what you all wanted, and that's what we put on the ballot. We also want, it hasn't come up yet, universal waste collection was huge. We were one of the only cities in the state that didn't have universal garbage collection, and that's already proven itself to cleaning up neighborhoods. Instead of driving out in the woods and throwing their trash out, they've actually got a container out in front of their house that they can use. So cleaning up the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Russell Kramer.
Well, I was born and raised here, and I left for 30-some years. I came back to Lake County and took my mother's had bought a home in Clearlake. She'd passed, and I chose to live in Clearlake in that. When I came back, I found that I'd missed an entire generation of people, and that's kind of prompted me to start joining things. The first thing that I was involved with, I was a founding member of the Lower Lake Football Fundraising Association. That kind of opened me up to community service. I think we raised, while I was active in that, over $100,000 for youth and high school sports programs. I went on from that to an opening in the Lake County Fire Protection District Board. I was on that for 5 years, learned about governance, learned about budgets, public agencies. Had an opportunity when an opening came up on the Planning Commission, and applied for it, and was successful in that application. One more step. When the opening came up last March, I decided that I was ready to move on to that. But in the meantime, speaking of things I've done, I was of course, I was a former vice chair of the Planning Commission. Didn't stay there long enough to move up to chair. I was vice chair on the Lake County Fire Board. I serve on the Lake County Planning Commission and, Lake Planning Council and Lake Transit Authority now. I was a founding director and treasurer of the Lake Area Rotary Club Association and also its Fire Relief Committee.
Fine.
Coordinate, really?
Fast 2 minutes, huh?
Yeah.
When you have a long list of
pardon
accomplishments.
me?
When you have a long list of accomplishments, it goes quickly.
Well,
You can finish your thought.
Thank you. I think you deserve a council member who will listen to your concerns and take action to solve our community's problems. I want to continue to be that person. So thank you.
Thank you. That ends our forum tonight. Thank all of 3 of you, Russell Kramer, Russ Purdock, and Dirk Slutin. We really appreciate you being here tonight. You spent a lot of time going through a lot of issues, and I'm grateful to all of you. So good luck to all of you next month.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
And thank you to the community members who came tonight, the ones who sent us information and questions. And we also want to thank the Lake County Economic Development Corporation, who has been a consistent co-sponsor with us in these events with Lake County News. We want to thank the PEG station for streaming tonight. And again, another thank you to the City Hall staff who have made the use of the chambers possible and set it up for us. So thank you again. This will be available on PEG and on Lake County News. So thank you all very much and have a great night.
Thank you.